and welcome back from the bye week to Washington Football Team's unfiltered show, The Beat. I am your host. I am rested and relaxed and ready for a crucial matchup against the New York Giants. They're coming off a loss against the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. Washington, on the other hand, a huge win over the Cowboys going into the bye, setting up a huge NFC East matchup. Put Washington even closer to chasing the Eagles. An excellent panel gets us back into the groove of things, starting with Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider, flexing that he's the smartest person in this week's show with his Georgetown Hoyas basket. We also have Pete Haley of NBC Sports Washington, and we have Rhiannon Walker of The Athletic DC covering the Washington Football Team beat. Panel, Washington is a game behind the Eagles, and the Giants are at 1-7. So you would think both teams have a lot on the line for this game. Let's start with you, Dan, because they didn't make any moves at the deadline to try and make that push that Ron Rivera has been talking about over the last couple of weeks. Ryan Kerrigan, Dwayne Haskins were two names that kept floating around on social media, and even you guys discussed a little bit on ESPN. Ryan Kerrigan, let's begin there. Why do you think he stays in Washington?
Well, a couple of reasons. I mean, I think you have to get something that makes it worth your while if you're dealing a guy like that. And he makes a fair bit of money, right? I mean, somebody who's taking him on is going to have to take on salary for the rest of the year. As you made your calls around the trade deadline, you heard from a lot of teams that would normally be making like a go for it move and be willing to take on a contract might not want to do that this year because, you know, the salary cap's probably going down next year and you can roll over cap space from this year to next year. So teams were a little more protective of that cap space as well as their draft picks because of all that situation that's coming in 2021.
Pete, Ryan said in the offseason he wanted to retire in burgundy and gold. Then we got the report that came out. He asked for the trade, but we know how much he's valued by this Washington Football Team. Ron even went on the record to say he means so much to us, so there really wasn't, as Dan alluded to, much value to get him out there and get something back. Even though Kerrigan's not getting the amount of snaps you would like to see from him, now 6 sacks away from passing 100 in his career, how does he continue to be an impact for the young guys like Chase Young and Montez Sweat?
Well, Chip, thank you for having me on a panel. I'm not on very many panels. So this is a big opportunity for me. But in terms of your Ryan Kerrigan question, I like your point about what Ron said. I mean, we were thinking maybe Dwayne would be traded, maybe Ryan Anderson, but Kerrigan himself, I wasn't expecting it just because of how much the coaches laud him and how much Ron speaks to how Ryan can help both the development of Chase Young and Montez Sweat. The example he sets, the leadership he shows in practice. And Ron also said, we want to get this guy some more snaps. Kerrigan has 4 sacks. He's just not playing that much. So you add up what he brings off the field and the production he still has. I think it makes sense that they kept him. If you're going to make the playoffs, it's going to be because of this D-line, and Ryan Kerrigan is still an integral part of it in every facet.
The hottest topic before the trade deadline amongst the fan base was Dwayne Haskins. Ron Rivera's not ready to give up on him just yet. He said that this week. Dan, you've been following all the trades. I saw a couple of teams thrown out there just from my friends and the people I talk to. No sources. This is just conversation. The Patriots and the Cowboys were teams that could have been in the mix, but ultimately we heard nothing was really going to get him out of here. Do you believe Dwayne has any value outside of Washington?
I think it would have to be a team that liked him in the draft last year, right? Or a coaching staff that liked him in the draft last year and thought they could work with him and mold him into something, because obviously I think at this point he's not the finished product, right? Like if he were playing right now, he'd be in a development phase and working toward being the prospect that they thought he was when they drafted him where they drafted him. So you'd have to find a team that was willing to put in that work. And again, I mean, trade deadline, people are not giving up draft picks for very easily. So this is, I don't know if you're going to spare a draft pick on a quarterback who may not help you until now his 3rd year in the league. So if you believe in his talent, I would think he'll probably have a chance to maybe find a taker if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned not giving up picks, because we're seeing that play out with the Houston Texans, who are losing a lot of games right now, and the Miami Dolphins hold on to that pick that could be a top 5, and you guys have talked a lot about it on ESPN, what that could be leading to implications-wise. Rhiannon, even though we're past that deadline now and Haskins is the 3rd quarterback on the depth chart, what do you hope to see from him in practice, and if he does get that shot to get back on the field, to give you confidence that Ron really isn't giving up on him?
I think you just want to see him be engaged. I think one of the first things I asked Ron about immediately after the benching was how he was standing away from the other players. He had his arms crossed and you could visibly see it. And on a human level, you understand being upset about the fact that you were just publicly demoted to not only the second string, but the third string quarterback. That's understandable. But as a player and as a media member, you understand also that by standing away from your teammates, crossing your arms, I know exactly what we're going to have to write about now. I already see the conversation happening ahead. Today in practice, for instance, I noticed he's standing next to the quarterbacks. He's standing next to the quarterback's coach. He's engaged. He's dancing during the music. He's lighthearted. I think that he's had some time, one, to process why this is happening, two, to understand what he needs to do. And so what do you need to do? You need to be engaged. You need to do well in practice as well, too. Take those reps. He keeps talking about the 5,000 reps. I'm talking about Ron Rivera. Take those 5,000 reps. If you take those by the horn and you actually show progress, then there's obviously a potential for quarterback competition down the line. It may not happen this season, but you have to think towards the future. I've just never heard anybody say around Dwayne Haskins' camp that he's somebody who gives up or doesn't like to be challenged. From everybody I've spoken to, that's quite the opposite. He likes to be challenged, just like when he was playing at Ohio State. So I foresee him being somebody who's going to challenge himself to do better moving forward down the season.
Dan, Kerrigan, Sweat, and Young have a combined 9.5 sacks for the Washington football team defense. How would you grade that defense under Jack Del Rio halfway through the season?
I mean, honestly, I think it's an outstanding defense, especially up front. I was looking at the numbers. I gave them a B+. That might be a little low, honestly. I mean, where they stand in terms of everything they do other than stop the run is top 5, right? And then run their middle of the pack. So, no, I think going into the season, I thought this was going to be a pretty tough-looking front seven, especially if Chase Young was what we thought he was going to be, which it seems like he is. And we were talking about Kerrigan before. I mean, the ability to have that much depth in the front and run fresh guys, it doesn't matter. Ryan Kerrigan's 32 years old. I mean, maybe backing him off in terms of a snap count is actually the way to get the best out of him right now. And it looks like what Del Rio is doing with the defense is working. The issue seems to be that they've had trouble scoring on offense, but they don't look like they're a lot of fun to play against.
Definitely not. Just ask Ben DiNucci and Andy Dalton, who had to go up against that before the bye week, where they were getting hounded by those guys. Pete, I saved the best for last because the special teams in 2019 was the best on the team, and Tressway continues to show why he might be the MVP yet again. So how would you grade the special teams so far?
Yeah, Tress is a baller. He's always going to be a baller. He always has been. It's actually weird that watching the punter is one of the best parts of my job. I can't wait to watch him drop the ball inside the 5-yard line, but I want to see more from Dustin Hopkins. He's missed a kick in 5 of 7 games, 4 missed field goals and an extra point. Ron's sticking with him for now, but Dustin has to justify that belief. And then in terms of returns, we haven't really seen a big return yet. Maybe that can happen if Steven Sims comes back healthy and can help in the punt game. So it's weird. Tress gets an A+. Dustin, you want to see more from him. So maybe a C- there and throwing a return and league average. So I'll give the special teams overall a B-, and I'm a harsh grader, I guess, but a B- for the specials.
That's okay, because Tress is the way. And still to come, we're going to dive deeper into the matchup between Washington and the New York Giants in a critical NFC East matchup that could determine who has the front running path to chasing down the Eagles. Stay with us. You're watching The Beat.
We all know things are different. Keeping you safe is not. At Innova, we ensure the safety of everyone who comes to us with safe locations, safe supplies, safe cleaning, and safe practices. You're safe at Innova. Get the facts at innova.org/safety.
It's 2020. Let's make a splash. Play the DC Lottery's Roaring Cash.
Free healthcare. Hundreds to more than $1,000 per month in disability compensation and tens of thousands for college tuition. These are just some of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs benefits that may be available to veterans. VA is focused on customer service like never before. Choose VA and see why veterans' trust in VA reached an all-time high. Claim the benefits you've earned at choose.va.gov.
Find adventure at an all-wheel drive Honda SUV, now on clearance. Like the turbocharged all-wheel drive CR-V, the versatile all-wheel drive HR-V, or the Adventure Ready Passport and Pilot, both equipped with 3 different driving modes. Take back the driver's seat and find adventure with a rugged Honda SUV on clearance. When it comes to the best value, Honda leaves the others in the dust. See your local Honda dealer and start your adventure today.
Welcome back to The Beat. I'm Chip Brierre alongside Dan Graziano of ESPN, Pete Haley of NBC Sports Washington, and Rhiannon Walker of The Athletic DC. This is the second matchup between Washington and New York. The last time these two teams played, the Giants were the victors on a failed 2-point conversion by the Washington football team at the end of the game in the Meadowlands. But the Giants are coming off another close loss where this time they failed a 2-point conversion against the Buccaneers. So it drives us right into our next segment. Upvote, downvote. We start with Pete. Antonio Gibson will have his second straight 100-yard rushing game this season. He had over 100 yards in that win over the Cowboys, a career high. He also had 2 touchdowns. What do you think? Upvote, downvote.
A lot of pressure to start off this segment, the first one ever in its history, and I'm sorry to start off with a downvote. If you gave this to me as 100 total yards, I would feel very good about it because I like what he has in the passing game. But that rushing performance came against one of the worst defenses and one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. The Giants are a lot better. So I think Antonio Gibson will be very productive, but I think it's going to be a mix, not necessarily going over 100 just on the ground.
Pro Football Focus says Antonio Gibson was the highest rated rookie running back after week 7 ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who happens to be on one of the best offenses in the NFL. That says something about Antonio Gibson's production as he continues to progress towards that star Washington saw him when they drafted him. Dan, Terry McLaurin will have the most receiving yards from either team on Sunday. Upvote, downvote.
I go upvote. I mean, at that receiver position, there's no better player in this game. The Giants have some good players at that position, and Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, but not knowing which one's likely to have the bigger game and knowing how good Washington has been on defense, I have to give it to Terry McLaurin. Look, there's one possibility the Giants put James Bradbury on him, and he's been very, very good this year against other teams' top wide receivers, but I feel like McLaurin can break a long one even if that's the case.
Recently named a captain with Landon Collins on the IR coming back from that surgery. Well earned and deserved after his rousing post-game speech against the Cowboys. The captain, Scary Terry. Has a nice ring to it. And this last upvote, downvote category is going to be open to the whole panel, starting with Rhiannon. The winner of Sunday's game will win the NFC East. Rhiannon, kick us off.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go upvote actually.
Okay.
Just looking at the way the Cowboys are playing, I am not at all inspired. Between the offensive line, the defense is porous. Obviously, Pete mentioned the fact that they were a porous running defense, and they're going to play them again shortly thereafter. They played the Giants. I don't really like the way the Eagles have played. I mean, they did beat a bad Cowboys team, but if you watch the game, you saw that the Cowboys did keep up with them in the first half. So, and this is a team that Washington's beaten already in the first game of the season. I could very much see Washington getting very hot, especially with the next 4 games they had. I've already mentioned the Bengals, they have the Lions, and they have the Cowboys. It's very foreseeable, especially when you think about the fact that Eagles are playing better teams in comparison. So I can very much see the winner of this game being the winner of the NFC East in this regard.
I'm still a downvote, though. Rhiannon almost had me convinced. I thought that was pretty good, especially factoring in the schedules. I just feel like the Eagles, maybe this turns out to be wrong, but so far shredded by injuries, and a lot of those guys are coming back, and it looks like Carson Wentz has forgotten how to play football, and I believe that that's probably not going to last. I think at some point he'll bring it back around and play better than he has, because when you're playing down to Ben DiNucci's level on a Sunday night game, that's not where you want to be. So I still think they have the most room to grow in terms of what this year's roster can do. So I'll go downvote here, although I would like to hear more from Rhiannon because I felt like I was almost convinced.
Rhiannon didn't convince Dan, but she definitely convinced me. I'm going upvote. I love the differential in the schedules. The Eagles are kind of going through a gauntlet for the rest of the way. Washington can have this stretch here to get right. They have 3 tough games, but then they finish against the Panthers and the Eagles. I just get somewhat of a vibe here. I think the Ron Rivera effect, him finishing treatment, I think that's bringing this whole team closer. That might be a little corny, but you're seeing with the way Terry McLaurin talked after the Cowboys game. They gave Ron a game ball a couple days ago after practice. It just seems like they're getting together. They're figuring things out. every player is saying that practice has been better, that they're understanding what Ron and Jack Del Rio want. I just get a sense that, I don't know if it's going to be like a snowball down the hill. Like in the NFC East, is there a snowball? It might just be like a little ice ball getting a little bit bigger. But I think Washington is going to be in the driver's seat after this one and then slowly catch the Eagles, because Carson Wentz, I've been waiting for him to turn it around. And maybe he will, but maybe he doesn't. And maybe this is just a weird year for him. So I'm going to say upvote.
Upvote. So that's 2 out of 3 from our panel, that the winner of this game will go on to win the NFC East. Very quickly going around the horn, starting with Pete. A prediction for Sunday's game and a score. Give it to us. Get us started.
I will say it's going to be 26-20. Weird score that just popped in my head, so maybe that's a good vibe. I'll say, for the hell of it, there's a missed 2-point conversion, because that's what happened in the first meeting between the two teams. The Giants had one last week, so that's going to be a strange little element. But I think the Washington defense will get those Daniel Jones turnovers. Kendall Fuller, Chase Young, they'll ignite it. And I know Kyle Allen has to protect the ball too. He's also a quarterback who wears number 8 with some turnover issues, but I think it's going to be better for them at home. They understand what they did wrong in that first meeting, and they're going to apply it to the second one.
Staying consistent with your upvote from earlier. I like it, Petey. Rhiannon.
When you're talking about snowballs, if you're talking about them, maybe Eagles fans throwing them at somebody, but I don't know about a snowball effect per se.
Just not Santa Claus.
Just as long as you're not in the Santa Claus suit, you'll be okay. I think I'm going to go close to Pete's score. I'm going to go 28-21. When you think about the games these teams have played in recent history, obviously there was the blowout last year at the Meadowlands, but I think about the 41-35 overtime game last year at FedEx Field where they had to come back. I think about this game where Washington had to come back and you lose by a point. So I could see them getting somewhere like 28-24. There's some exciting element to it. I do think there will be a turnover or 2 on both sides, but I think it's going to be somewhere in that mid-range. I think Washington's offense has finally figured out how to do some things, and they look like they're going to get Steven Sims back as well too, and Isaiah Wright, so that should possibly help them on offense.
Certainly should be a help. Dan, you get to end it for us. Your prediction and score.
I'm taking Washington. I figure we were all taking Washington because the last question, I don't think anybody thinks the Giants are going to win the NFC East, even if they win this game. So I assumed we were all taking Washington. I have it low scoring. I have it 20-17. Rhiannon knows better than I do. She's seen a lot more of the team, obviously, this year than I have. But, overall, a couple of teams that haven't scored a lot. So I had it low scoring at 20-17 Washington, and maybe a missed 2-point conversion factors in. But it sounds like the 26-20 sounds like a big Hopkins game, which I guess you guys are looking forward to.
You'd be close to the cover, and that is it for this week's episode of The Beat. Want to thank our panel for being with us. Be sure to check them out wherever they are working. Rhiannon Walker of The Athletic DC, covering the Washington football team beat. Check out our articles. They're fantastic. Pete Haley of NBC Sports Washington, his podcast, along with JP Finley and Mitch Tischler, Washington Football Talk podcast. You can catch it anywhere. And Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL Insider, who has been taking time away from his phone. I hope you didn't miss any breaking stories while you were working with us, man.
We're all right.
Excellent. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
Don't let the comfort fool you. Don't let the attention to detail lead you to believe that a Honda is a delicate machine. You'd be wrong. Underneath every surface that carries a Honda badge, there has always been the capacity to amaze. From the core of everything we have ever built, all the way to the top of where you want to go. Rise to the challenge with the rugged performance of the Honda Pilot, Passport, and Ridgeline.
FanDuel's simple, intuitive app makes it easy to get closer to the game. But to get Dan even closer, we've arranged for him to experience a genuine James Harrison tackle.
Wait, what? Tackle? Can we not do the tackle?
If he doesn't tackle you, he doesn't get paid.
Doesn't get paid? Oh,
FanDuel. Join today and play free all season long.
At Inova, COVID-19 testing of all patients having a procedure or surgery, continuous training of our team members, and thorough cleaning of our facilities are just some of the many ways we work to keep you safe. You're safe at Inova.